The Locked On Podcast Network presents the Big 6 in 60. The 6 biggest national sports stories from the local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network. Get the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 60 minutes. The Big 6 in 60 starts now with the biggest story in sports. You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels.
Bill Belichick's first career game as an NFL head coach for the Browns. Literally 34 years ago to the day. Holly Rowe, in fact, even talked about it on the broadcast. September 1st, 1991. In that game, Bill Belichick and the Browns were playing the Dallas Cowboys. They lost 14-26. How crazy that it was 34 years to the day. But my point in bringing that up is this, and I said this all in the lead up, and I still do truly believe this, even after the embarrassment that just happened at Kenan Stadium with everyone filing out. This game tonight, and yes, all the embarrassment of it, everything that happened, is literally just one football game. You learn from it. You figure out why things went as horribly awry as they did, and they did. And then you move on. And you burn the tape, never to be seen again. Tonight is just one game, and there is lots of football to be played both this year and beyond. That first year for Cleveland, I think Bill Belichick went 6-10, and it was a while before he got things really to where they needed to be. And like, again, I was saying this before this game even started. Not that I wanted to throw this game away, although I do now. It's just to say that one game in, we don't know good or bad. Were Carolina to have been on the other side of 48-14, I would be saying the same thing. Don't get all high and mighty because you could just as easily lose to Charlotte next week or whatever it is. So there it is. Even after this loss, I continue to say it's just one game. You learn from it, and then you keep on trucking. That said, number 2 point coming out of all this, it was a brutal first game. And like, you just have to take it. You got to take it on the chin. I already know, like Kenton Gibbs, one of our Locked On Wolfpack hosts, is licking his Wolfpack chops for the ACC squad show that we will record on Tuesday evening. I know it. Alex Dono has already told me, our great host of Locked On ACC, that I've got to lead things off. So look, when you get embarrassed, you got to stand up and own it, and you keep going. Here's the truth of the matter. Things could not have gone more better. That's not even a right phrase. Things could not have gone better for Carolina in that first drive. I mean, they came out guns blazing. Caleb Hood, who started, by the way, over Davion Gauss. Interesting bullet coming off the bench. Hood's churning things up. Gio Lopez has a couple nice completions. In fact, 2 of the first 5 plays were brilliant. Hood waltzes in, and it's like, okay, Bill Belichick and the Tar Heels, you got something here. And then they're able to force a punt from TCU. But in the same breath that I say things could not have gone better for Carolina on the first drive, I don't know that there's anything else to say, because things could not have gone more poorly the rest of this Labor Day. It was a labor to watch this game. After that, Carolina had 3 straight 3-and-outs. They had the 83 yards on their first drive, getting that touchdown. The next 3 drives went -11, 0, and 1. And the drive right after that, even thanks to Caleb Kost's wonderful tip drill interception. What up, baseball skills? Shouts and hat tips to Kamari House for the pressure. After that was the pick 6. So after that opening drive was beautiful and brilliant, and Carolina, wow. -11, 0, 1, pick 6. Oh boy, there's that. Fourth thing I want to talk about. Let's remember back. Let's go to basketball. It's Coach K's final regular season game in Cameron Indoor Stadium. There's all the media hoopla that's been created, all of this stuff, and all of the Duke alum are there. They're all wearing special shirts and jackets. They make a tunnel. There's the whole thing. And it was like a complete afterthought that the Tar Heels were even going to be in Cameron Indoor Stadium and were even going to play in the game, much less, holy cow, win it. Now, much different stakes and much more contemplation that TCU was the favorite because they were in this game. But it was very similar in terms of TCU being a complete afterthought. All along, I was like, TCU's got to feel completely disrespected, completely like redheaded stepchild. What's a stepchild with freckles, right? Like just completely overlooked, completely not thought about, despite the fact that they were the favorites in this game. Turns out that was completely correct. You think they wanted to prove something tonight, TCU? All you had to do was look at the fact that Josh Hoover, with a completely landslide blowout victory already in hand, is still in the game in the middle of the fourth quarter. Sonny Dykes to Holly Rowe after the game, he said, quote, "I think we all felt a little disrespected coming in. There was a lot of conversation and none of it was about us," end quote. And I was like, okay, Sonny Dykes is a little bit salty about how this went. And yes, they were happy to run up the score. And you know what? Kudos to you. You came out and you did the thing, right? And Carolina just had to sit there and take it because they certainly couldn't stop it and they weren't going to tackle anybody to do it. All right, let's talk about the environment a little bit. And then after that, we're going to have to take a break before we can dive into all the specifically bad things that were going on. Our guy, Josh Marlowe and Anthony Pagnotta of the Heel Tough blog, obviously longtime Carolina guys, all like have season ticket holders. They were there at the game. So I texted the two of them a little bit beforehand, probably the game kicked just after 8. I think it was probably about 7:30. I texted Marlowe to just say, like, what are the vibes? What is it like there in Keenan right now? And this was his quote back to me. "This place is a zoo, Shade. Never seen anything like it," end quote. And I tell you, the juxtaposition of those pregame scenes with all the pictures, all the video of people just filing out in droves. I mean, you guys, woof, that was embarrassing to watch happen. And the complete emptiness of Keenan in the fourth quarter, good grief, y'all. But you know, earlier on Monday, Pete Thamel had announced that Michael Jordan was expected to be there along with Mia Hamm, LT, Julius Peppers, Eric Church, Chase Rice. He also mentioned Blake Snell, funny enough, in that tweet. And obviously there were tons of other people there. We saw Randy Moss, a lot of just Belichick people were there. And then you saw the trio sitting together, right? Michael Jordan, Roy Williams, LT. That is an insane trio sitting right there. I've got Pete. If you're late in coming, I've got Pete, Kurt Herbstreet's dog here helping me podcast this evening. And so that was absolutely crazy. I was also keeping a Jordan Hudson counter because I was very curious to see. And they showed her right after that opening drive touchdown. And I don't know that we saw her again other than when they were re-showing Randy Moss, because it was her and Randy Moss right beside each other. So that was interesting. I expected to see a lot more Jordan Hudson in this game, but we just simply did not.
Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's a 401k or properties or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. I linked all my accounts to Monarch and immediately spotted a few subscriptions I wasn't even using. Canceling those all can save you money every month. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNFL.
What went wrong for the Longhorns offense against Ohio State? A lot.
You are Locked On Longhorns, your daily podcast on the Texas Longhorns. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We need to talk about this Texas offense. There was a lot that went wrong in Columbus. The numbers back it up. The eye test backs it up. I mean, the scoreboard kind of tells the whole story, right? 7 points. You're not going to win a lot of football games when you only score 7. It was ugly. It was downright ugly for Texas. And there were plenty of things that didn't go well on that side of the football. And there's a lot that needs to get cleaned up. But there is one thing that concerns me more than anything else coming out of that loss at the Shoe. Again, a lot that needs to be cleaned up. There's no doubt. I'm pretty confident that most of it can and will be fixed. The one thing that really worries me, the red zone. Why, you ask? Well, because it was a problem in 2023, and it was a problem again in 2024, and it's still a problem in 2025, at least at the start of the 2025 season. What do they say? Once is by chance, twice is a coincidence, 3 times is a pattern. We're into year 3 of this. It's not chance or coincidence anymore. This is a pattern, and it's a continuation of a very bad one for Steve Sarkisian and Texas football. The Longhorns had 2 trips inside the red zone on Saturday. They walked away with 0 points. That's right, a goose egg. Not only did they not get in the end zone, they didn't score at all on their 2 trips inside the Buckeye 20. And for the second time in as many games against Ohio State, Texas had a chance to tie the game in the second half. They get all the way down to the Buckeye 1-yard line, and they couldn't punch it in. Obviously, at the Cotton Bowl in January, it was a 1st and goal from the 1-yard line in the final minutes of regulation. This one was a 4th and goal from the 1-yard line, but a similar spot, Texas 1 yard away from tying the game in a big spot against a great team, and they just couldn't get the job done. And it's unacceptable. Look, again, the whole offense was bad. It took Texas way too long to get inside the 20 anyways. They didn't even make it into the red area until the second half. But when they finally got there, they completely peed down their leg twice. They have no identity down there. There's nothing that Texas can lean on inside the 20s. And the crazy thing to me is they had 232 days to figure this out. 232 days between the Cotton Bowl and the game on Saturday. What did they come up with all of that time off? That. I mean, it looks like they added a quarterback power and they tried to add a QB sneak, and they hoped that like those 2 things were going to be good enough to fix the last 2 years worth of red zone struggles. Not so fast, my friend, to quote the now retired legendary Lee Corso. It's more of the same. And of course, the last 2 Texas seasons ended in red zone failure. And it just feels like every big game that Texas has lost in the last few years has included at least one moment where they couldn't get the job done in the red area, and maybe more specifically at the goal line. The Oklahoma game in 2023, 1st and goal from the 1. You can't punch it in. Obviously, the semifinal game at the Sugar Bowl against Washington, you get to the red zone with a chance to win the game and get to a national title. You come up short. The SEC title game against Georgia last year, the college football playoff last year, and now this. Texas hasn't lost a lot of football games in the last few seasons. Every time they lose, you can almost point directly to a moment or a couple of moments in these losses where they just can't get the job done in the red zone. I'll dive into the play calls in a second. We'll break down exactly what was called and exactly what went wrong for Texas. But just to put in the context that this isn't much to do about nothing. In 2023, Texas was 89th in the country in red zone offense, scoring at about 80%. Only a 50% touchdown percentage. The 80% was touchdowns and field goals combined. They only scored touchdowns on 50% of their red zone trips. In 2024, the overall red zone offense got worse. The Longhorns were 111th in the nation in red zone offense, scoring points on just over 77% of their trips. They did improve their touchdown percentage, going up to 64%, but still not good enough. And again, the overall numbers actually got worse. And you look at the 3 losses that Texas had in 2024, Texas was 37.5% in terms of touchdown percentage in those 2 Georgia games, and of course the Ohio State game as well. And then here in 2025, Texas tied for dead last in the country with a 0% red zone success rate. Touchdown percentage, scoring percentage, it doesn't matter. You're over 2. That is another giant goose egg right there. Texas's red zone stats have gotten worse in every year that Steve Sarkisian has been the coach. Believe it or not, their best year was in 2021, year 1, when Texas was 5-7. Like, they were one of the best red area teams in the sport. That and blocking punts, like the only 2 things they were good at that year. Went down a little bit in 2022, but again, just gave you the numbers for 23 and 24, and here we are in 2025, and it's still not figured out. They had a whole offseason to get it corrected. Sark was asked about it 100 different times, including last Monday in his game week presser, and here we go again. Same crap, different year. I'll be politically correct. All right, I promised a breakdown of the red zone opportunities. So here we go, a quick play-by-play breakdown of the 2 red zone opportunities, and then we'll do a little screen sharing here to further dive into what's happening. So the first red zone trip for Texas, the first possession of the second half, Texas gets down to the 9-yard line. They've got a 1st and goal from the 9. The first down play call, quarterback design run, works pretty well. 5-yard pickup for Arch Manning, gets down to the 4. 2nd and goal. You know what? I'm going to screen share this right now. I'm going to make sure I've got the right play pulled up here. Okay, so 2nd and goal. Here we go. This is the situation. Texas has the ball at the 4. It's an empty set. Now you see Trey Wisner in motion a little bit. He's going to run to the backfield. Looks like he's going to stop next to Arch Manning, but instead he just ends up running to the other side of the field. So this is what you've got, an empty set, Arch Manning in the shotgun. To me, this just screams QB draw. The way Arch Manning had been throwing the football, if I'm Ohio State, I'm not thinking they're going to let Arch Manning throw it in this area. And with zero threat of a running back, why don't you have a running back there? Just the threat of a zone read, the threat of a handoff, the threat of anything. To me, this was like such an obvious quarterback power from this look. Obviously, Texas did it on the play before, so Ohio State was already looking for it. They snuff it out. It's a minimal gain, maybe a yard on this play right there. The 3rd down play call is a shotgun run to CJ Baxter. That gets 2 yards from the 3 down to the 1. I don't love shotgun handoffs down there. I'd prefer to go under center so my running back in the backfield can get, a head of steam and a little bit of a running start. So he's running downhill when he gets the ball versus just standing at a standstill. And obviously the 4th down, the hurry up, Texas snaps the ball with like 25 seconds on the play clock. They do the quarterback sneak. Awful. Steve Sarkisian in the postgame said Texas practiced it a lot, said he liked it. But he also said that, they didn't get the big guys out there. They didn't want to sub because they didn't want to let Ohio State bring in its jumbo players on defense. So they ran it out of a different formation to try to catch Ohio State off guard. Obviously, it didn't work. I'm a fan of the QB sneak. It's the most successful short yardage play in football. It can definitely work when executed correctly. That one obviously wasn't. Texas didn't look polished at all. They looked hurried. They looked rushed. It's kind of the theme of the day for Arch Manning in this Texas offense. Here's the look that they showed. And again, it can work, but it didn't look like something that Texas had practiced all offseason. They ran one earlier in the game on the 4th down on the first possession of the first quarter. And it was like 4th down and short from their own 34. They needed about a quarter of a yard. They barely got it. And I didn't leave that play thinking, oh, that's great. We got to run that again. I'm like, eesh, I don't know if I want to see another quarterback sneak today because that one barely got there. And, yeah, they run it again. Obviously, they don't get there. They get stuffed at the goal line. That was sequence number 1. Sequence number 2, this is a 14-0 game at this point. Early in the 4th quarter, Texas has a 1st and 10 from the 16-yard line. This was not a goal to go. This was a 1st and 10, but obviously in the red zone, so it fits the conversation here. 1st down play call, another quarterback run, picks up 4. 2nd down, shotgun run off tackle to Trey Wisner. It gets you 3. So it's 3rd and 3, and then ultimately 4th and 3. This, I'm going to criticize Sark for the first sequence of plays, right? The goal to go situation that we just talked about. Steve Sarkisian called perfect plays on 3rd and 4th down here. This is where execution matters, and this is where Arch Manning has to be better. Perfect play call on 3rd and 3. Here's the screen share right here. Oh, hit the wrong button. There we go. There's the screen share right there. Arch is under center, drops back to pass. He has a very clean pocket, at least for a while, And look, you got crossing routes over the middle of the field. Obviously, if you're in podcast form, you can't see this, but I think you remember the play. I'll try to explain it the best that I can. You got two crossers with Spencer Shannon and Ryan Wingo. This is right about the moment where Arch is about to throw the football. Both of those guys are wide open. Like, I understand leaning Wingo because he's Wingo and Spencer Shannon's your number 2 tight end. So throwing to Wingo is not a problem there, but the ball is at his feet. I mean, Arch throws a fastball right at the feet of Ryan Wingo. Like, if that ball's on the money, that's a first down easily. Instead, it's at his feet, so it's incomplete. If you throw it to Spencer Shannon, that's potentially a touchdown. And also at the very bottom of the screen, under the Ohio State logo on the scoreboard, you see Trey Wisner there. He's also open in the flat. So it was a great play call. There were 3 open receivers on this play. I think Arch made a fine decision going to Wingo. The ball's actually in the air. I beg your pardon. And if the ball's on the money, it's a first down. Drive stays alive. Maybe Wingo breaks a tackle and scores. Who knows? But the throw just wasn't there. So Arch Manning wasn't good. And then you get to the 4th down play call. This was another perfect play call by Sark. And a lot of the other guys on the offense executed this right. Arch Manning had the wrong read here. You see, Ryan Wingo is running kind of a slant. There was a rub route with DeAndre Moore. Wingo's running a slant. He's got about a step and a half on Jermaine Matthews, the Ohio State corner. If Arch throws it there to Wingo over the middle, that's a catch. That's a first down. Maybe Wingo takes a shot, but I trust him to hold on to the football. Maybe he breaks that tackle. Maybe he scores. Who knows? That should have been the play. Steve Sarkisian said after the game, the first read was supposed to be to Ryan Wingo. But Arch locked in on Parker Livingston. He saw a one-on-one. He took the corner out, which was a much lower percentage throw. I know Livingston was great, but that's your number 3 receiver, basically in his first game, going up against Davison Igbinosun, who's Ohio State's number 1 corner. That's a low percentage matchup. That's a low percentage throw. Obviously, it didn't work. Incomplete pass, turnover on downs. I don't want to say ball game over, but that was, needless to say, a massive moment for Texas. So, again, all the play calling wasn't bad. This is not to absolve Sark of any of the blame for what happened in the red zone. He's got to be better down there. And ultimately, it's his responsibility to figure out how to get this issue fixed. But even the times where he did call good plays, the execution wasn't there. Texas outgained Ohio State by 133. They outrushed them 166-77. They allowed 1 sack and 1 TFL in the entire game. You should win games. You should win every game when you do those things. But situational football, Ohio State made the big plays when they needed to, just like they did in January, and Texas didn't. Red zone offense continues to be a problem. You've got to get it fixed.
Florida State didn't just beat Alabama. It's how they took them apart.
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles.
There's a lot of substance regarding statistics, and it's going to show you how Florida State took apart Alabama. And I'm going to lead with this, and I'm going to reference it in different ways throughout the show. But I want you to think about this. For any football fan out there, or anybody, well, I don't care if you're a Noel fan or just somebody coming in curious, okay, what happened? Why did Florida State beat Alabama? If you're looking for the reason, this is the number 1 stat of the game. Florida State scores 31 points. 31 points. And we're going to dissect why it happened through the drives. They didn't have a short drive. All their drives were over 50 yards to get those 30 points. No short fields, no scoop and score, no punt, none of that. They physically manhandled Alabama. That's the number 1 theme for this show. Second, they did the things they said they were going to do. It's a boring thing to say. We're going to run the ball. We're going to be consistent. We're going to be multiple, and we're going to show a lot of eye candy. Gus said it in his opening press conference way back like in January, through spring, through summer, all the things. It was very linear, and they just did it. They told everybody what they were going to do, including Alabama, and then they did it. And then finally, let's talk a little defense. Florida State's defense was pretty good throughout the day. They gave up the opening drive, but after that, they gave up 10 points the rest of the game. We're going to dissect it statistically in all those areas. But again, we're going to start with the drives. I want everybody to hear just the literal facts. And then I'm going to break down a few of the plays and whatnot. It's amazing because, again, it's one thing to score 31 on a quality opponent. it's another when they don't hand it to you. Alabama was pretty disciplined for the most part. Shortest drive, again, 52 yards. That was the field goal that Florida State scored to go up 17-7. So, without further ado, here are the drives for the Noles. And by the way, you really can't do much better on your first 3 drives. 3 of them, touchdown, field goal. Here's how it went. First drive, Noles get the ball after Bama scored. They're up 7-0. There's only 6:10 left in the first quarter. Bama had a long drive, 15-play drive. I was like, oof, that's pretty impressive. Noles come back, 3 minutes and 4 seconds, 7 plays, 75 yards. Took just very little time to get, just consistent, like just body blow. And they punch it. Okay. Second quarter, you get the ball back. Bama doesn't score. So it's tie ball game. We got a chance. We've got a chance right here to take the lead. This is what's interesting. 3 minutes and 59 seconds for the touchdown. 8 plays, 65 yards. And it was very, very much like the drive before. They just threw when they win it, but 1-2. By the way, as a reminder, Tommy Castellanos was 9 out of 14 in this game. Again, they said we're going to run the ball. They said it all off season, and they said it in fall camp, this, that, and the other. You could read the tea leaves in those press conferences. They didn't hide anything. I mean, this is what we're going to do, and they just went out and executed it. So 3 minutes and 59 seconds on the second drive for score. Excuse me, and 65 yards. Now, if you look at it from a big box perspective, Florida State, they've got a lead. How many teams coming off a season like they did would kind of sit on it, wouldn't be as aggressive? Give Gus credit, give Mike Norvell credit, and of course the players. When they kicked the field goal on that drive, Bama held them from getting the end zone, I will grant you. But Florida State just kept doing the same things, and they would just mix it up a little bit with, jet sweeps like the Danzy touchdown on the second drive or whatever. That, let's be honest, that was awesome. But I'm not sure that people realize just how much they dissected them. Bama's defensive front, if you go watch it, go back and watch some of the game. They were getting gashed 3, 5, 7 yards at a time. Dissected. They didn't know where it was coming from. Florida State outcoached them. And probably, not trying to be mean, it really wasn't that close. I don't know why. Again, they handed everybody what they were trying to do. And Gus's offense is pretty straightforward on his concepts. Now, the individual plays and who gets the ball, part of that Gus doesn't even know because it's RPO stuff. But you knew you had to win in the trenches. And you didn't. Florida State punched you in the mouth on those first 3 drives, the field goal drive being 52 yards. The tone was set. And Bama never had a charge. They never had a comeback. Florida State won because of those long sustained drives without any help. And they just slowly took Alabama's will. And they slowly took out any chance mentally that Alabama was going to have an easy day. Alabama didn't respond. They played hard. I mean, they're not a terrible team or anything like that. But there was never any doubt. The way the game was going, I got a phone call from a buddy of mine who doesn't like Bama. He's like, is Bama really going to lose this game? I said, Florida State's going to win this game. It's not close. This is early, I don't know what, third quarter, something like that. And I said, this game ain't close. They're beating them up. They're killing them at the line of scrimmage. They're telling them what they're going to do, and they're just doing it. I remember having that conversation now, and it was just great because I'm like, this is what it's supposed to look like at Florida State. So again, they took their will. They did it because they wanted to. They wanted it more. They executed it better. There was no frills at all. If you take nothing else from this pod, take that. Florida State can enforce its will on anybody. So Miami Hurricanes, the Florida Gators, anybody else on the schedule, they've got a chance in any given game. And I'm sure teams will adjust after film was out and all that. But this was pretty interesting.
The NFL season is almost here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Perhaps you believe the Packers are going to win the Super Bowl. Odds are shorter today than they were yesterday, I'll tell you that. I think I got them at 25-1. Are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet.
Jauan Jennings is back. Dominic Pooney and Niners getting healthy at the right time.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
There's a theory, Croc, going around that Kendrick Bourne visiting the San Francisco 49ers Monday might have been that extra little bump that Jauan Jennings needed to get out on the practice field. And maybe all of a sudden the calf started feeling a lot better. What do you think about that? Jauan Jennings on the practice field for the first time, in a month for the San Francisco 49ers. Massive news heading into week 1.
Yeah, no, you start to kind of feel like if he's playing a little possum with the 49ers, or is it a contract negotiation tactic? But you bring in the guy, you kind of see a little competition there, and it's like, you know what, maybe the calf doesn't hurt as much. I will say this from his perspective. It's tough, man. Like, to know I was as productive as I was when I finally get opportunities to get targets, guys were down, like you needed me, and I came through in the way that you needed during that time to at least make the 49ers have a competitive offense. And the next year is, we start getting guys back. And, I'm still going to play a big role because Brandon Ayuk won't be back. He'll miss a little bit more than a quarter at least. How healthy will he be once he gets back? Will he look like himself? There still should be some, legit opportunities for Jauan Jennings. And if I'm him, this is the perfect time to capitalize. Like when they talked about trade request and all that, like I felt like he's right. Either pay me what I'm worth. And we heard some crazy numbers floating out there, $20 million a year. I don't know about that. Well, I think you're worth whatever someone's willing to pay him. I would not pay him $20 million, but I definitely would pay him more than, what is it, $8 million that he's going to be making this season.
Yeah, I think the tough part for the 49ers is that they just did that contract last year, right? And they just don't want to be held over the fire.
That was kind of to just get it going. All right, like they did with Emmanuel Mosley. Remember what they did with Mosley? It was something very similar where he was coming up on a contract year. They did something to where they extended him to where now it's like, okay, we got you under control for 2 years, but it was still a low amount of money. It was kind of when they felt like Emmanuel Mosley may be somebody that sticks around a little bit. All right, let's add this extra year. It gives us a little security in case he does ball out, and we can end up, just letting him walk in free agency, which they did. And I think the 49ers tried to do something similar to Jauan Jennings, but unlike the Emmanuel Mosley situation, like everybody was hurt like this. So it was like, well, damn, now we really kind of need you. Like Emmanuel Mosley, like obviously we like you. We would love to have you around, but we can kind of let you walk and we feel like we'll still be fine, even if you try to hold out or do something. The 49ers would not be fine right now if there's no Jauan Jennings. I mean, he knows that. So it's like, dude, I'm going to hold your feet to the fire and try to make something happen. And it's tough because the Niners didn't cave, and he ended up being the first one to cave and is coming back. And as far as we know, he's under the same contract.
Yeah, and who knows if the $20 million asking price is true or not. And look, I think the best thing that they can happen for the 49ers here is, look, $20 million a year. Some people are talking about even more than that per year, potentially could be the ask. It's like, you just can't do that if you're the 49ers. But can you give them a little bump? Everyone feels good about it. Get through the season. Then we'll figure this thing out in the offseason. And maybe Jauan Jennings has to walk and hit free agency to get the full amount of money that he wants. And I think the 49ers would have to be okay with letting him walk if that was the case, if teams were willing to pay that, or if not, they're able to figure out something to bring him in to be the the exact guy he's been for the 49ers, which is, a high-end number 3 sort of wide receiver. I think the 49ers, that's what they want. That's what they envision him to be. That's the piece that he is in the offense. He can start games for you, but you can't start paying him like a number 2 wide receiver around the NFL. And so I think that's where we're at, and hopefully that can happen, and he does stay healthy, and that this calf is – because, look, I don't think the calf was fake necessarily. You remember Alfred Collins had a calf injury, right? He couldn't work out pre-draft. He couldn't do OTAs. Like, he was out for 3-4 months, it felt like, right, with his calf injury. So it's not a short-term thing for a calf, and it's something that can bother you very quickly. So they got to make sure he's right as well and not force him into week 1 too. But hopefully the calf was right, and maybe the contract stuff was part of it, and some posturing, and maybe coming back to practice can help the 49ers get their half over the line, and they can at least figure out something in the short term to make everyone feel good and get through this season. Then we'll talk again. I think it's really the only way that this can get figured out.
You talked about him being a high-end 3. I think if you were to tell him, he's like, well, when the team needed me to be a 1 or even a high-end 2, like I was that, and I produced at a really good level. I think that's where the argument is for him. Like, what would another team be willing to pay him?
Yeah,
and obviously he's under contract, so it's not as simple as just us being able to find that out. But if I'm him, like, I think a team might be willing to pay me to be at 2,
right,
and be a guy that catches 80 passes for him. The 49ers, I just don't see that being the case if everybody's healthy.
Yeah,
even Christian McCaffrey. I think Christian McCaffrey will take away some of his targets as well.
Yeah, and Kittle. And so, ideally, the 49ers, the way they've built this thing is Jauan Jennings is the 5th option in the passing game. And you can't pay that $20 million. And maybe he does deserve that from another football team. You might have to go somewhere else to get it. Looking at the wide receiver group, there's a whole bunch of really good news as far as injuries goes. We get a little bit more serious for week 1. And I think guys that might have not practiced during the summer, I think when you start talking about real football games, Croc, I think whatever that injury is and the seriousness of the injury, that conversation changes, and players might start playing through stuff that they might not have been practicing for a preseason game, right? And so I think we might see some of that as well as we get ready for the regular season. Guys trying to get the players to this point so they could hit the practice field, even if they're still working through something, which Dominic Pooney is more on some of these other guys. I just want to focus on the wide receiver group. Jordan Watkins, rookie 4th rounder. He was working out on the side at practice on Monday. And so when you look at the group of 49ers that are available to play wide receiver here early in the season, Kendrick Bourne visiting, do the 49ers even need Kendrick Bourne? I was actually talking with Wink at our fantasy football draft, and we'll do our Winky Wednesday episode tomorrow. I was like, man, do the 49ers now have too many veteran wide receiver options? So they have at practice Jauan Jennings back, Ricky Pearsall, Russell Gage is back and healthy at practice. Marquez Valdez-Scantling and Robbie Chosen were at practice. They're on the practice squad, could get elevated for week 1. And you have Sky Moore as well. And then you have Jordan Watkins working out on the side. So that's 6.5 healthy players. Do you need to add a 7th wide receiver there with Kendrick Bourne? Is that even a necessity anymore for the 49ers? And do you all of a sudden have too many veteran guys?
Well, I think with Kendrick Bourne, I think we know that it may be a little bit more of an insurance look, just in case something does happen to one of their guys. So 49ers, obviously, I mean, they've had a lot of issues with guys being able to stay healthy at the running back position, at the receiver position as well. Why not bring in Kendrick Bourne, see where his head is at, see what he's thinking, what's his market, right? Find out those things. And if anybody goes down, that could be the first person that you call.
Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's a 401k or properties or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. I linked all my accounts to Monarch and immediately spotted a few subscriptions I wasn't even using. Canceling those all can save you money every month. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNFL.
The Steelers have extended Jaylen Warren, what it says about their confidence that this run game is going to get it together.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast.
The Steelers made a sort of a house cleaning move to sign Jaylen Warren into an extension. He was not signed past this season going into this week. And now he is signed with the Steelers through the 2027 season, reportedly a 3-year, $17.25 million, averaging around $5.75 million a year. Alan, this seemed to me like a move of confidence for a guy that hasn't officially started for the Steelers as a running back, has shown the propensity to fumble at times, but they really seem to believe in him. And as we've talked about the last few weeks, they seem to really believe that this run game is going to come together with this offensive line this year.
Well, we got the news during practice today that the Steelers had extended Jaylen Warren. I was excited to get into the locker room to see him, and he's still 5'8". I don't know. I know they say they extended him, but he's just a little – I mean, I didn't really notice.
I would Yoshi bonk you right now if I had the possibility to do that on my show, but continue.
I'm not sure I've ever been Yoshi bonked mid-podcast before. That's pretty good. I like that. Look, Jaylen Warren, I think, is one of the most under-talked about parts of this 2024 Steelers season right now because I think he's going to be really, really good. One of the things I asked him today is, you remember the Arthur Smith quote from, I guess it was back at minicamp maybe. He said, I didn't get Aaron Rodgers and DK Metcalf to play the wishbone, right? And they're going to throw the ball a lot more than they have the last few years. They're going to run a more passing offense, and that fits with exactly what Jaylen Warren's good at. He's a really good pass blocker. He's a really good receiver. And when he runs best out of spread formations where he can use his speed and his vision to get to the edge and find cutback lanes. Like, I just think he's going to be really, really good for the Steelers this season, and it's not a surprise to me that they wanted to extend him. I'm a little curious about the timing of everything, right? Because they could have just given him this extension back when he was a restricted free agent early in the offseason. So I'm not quite sure what changed or why they waited till the last minute here. But to me, this is kind of a no-brainer. Why wouldn't you want Jaylen, especially at this price? I mean, $5 million a year for a guy who I think is going to be a really, really good running back for him. I think this is kind of a no-brainer deal for the Steelers. And a guy who was an undrafted free agent, hasn't had a lot of career earnings in the bank, gets some future security, guarantees into year 2. That's a big deal for running back.
I mean, I think if they had slapped the franchise, or rather the 5th-year extension, on Najee Harris, that would have put him at what, $8 million last year?
I want to say it was a little less than that, but yeah, about that, yeah.
But it would have put him in the. But basically, they're getting Jaylen Warren for a few years for less than what they would have. 6.7. So less, $1 million less on a per year basis than what they would have been paying for Najee Harris just to stick around for one more year. I think that there's this confidence in him. I mean, we've seen how explosive he is. We've seen how fast he is. We've seen him be able to catch the football. I think there's a confidence that if they get him the creases, he's going to be able to take the yards. And he is a hard runner, as Kyle Brand likes to say. He's an angry runner, and he's one of the best angry runners in the NFL. I think there is an excitement there, and it's funny because I feel like you shouldn't lose sight of Caleb Johnson because there's a lot of excitement around him. But to me, the real excitement has to be about they must feel really good about this offensive line moving forward because the Steelers have not had a dominant run game in a long time. And when I say dominant, I mean like top 10. Even when Le'Veon Bell was in, Le'Veon Bell was a dominant player and he was a fantastic weapon. But I think there was only 1 year during his time with the Steelers that they even ranked top 10 in yards per rush, and that was the year that he was out for most of the season in 2015. But you have to go back to like 2007 for the last time the Steelers just straight up ranked as a top 10 rushing team in the NFL. So if you're looking at this and you're thinking like, hey, you want this offensive line to mature, I think Aaron Rodgers helps give this line a year to kind of adjust and where they don't have to be the guys that carry the whole offense by themselves with run blocking and being just the tone setters. But I do think that there's a vision that they want that to eventually be the tone of this team when they get a young quarterback on this roster.
Yeah, I don't know that the Steelers are going to be a dominant run team this year. And I think that's actually a term worth defining too, because you can have a really high yards per carry and still not be what I call a dominant run team. For me, a dominant run team is a team that the game situation dictates they must run, the other team knows they must run, and they're able to do it anyway. That to me is what a dominant run team is. You don't need 6 yards of carry to do that. We're winning by 4. There's 2 minutes left on the clock, and we're just trying to end this thing. Here's 7 handoffs in a row and a kneel down, and we can do it. Like, that to me is what makes a dominant running team. The Baltimore Ravens last year were a dominant running team. If you go look at the NFL team rushing from last year and you look at the average yards per carry, I don't know that they were the absolute best. They were, but like it means more. It's not so much about, you get yards per carry by getting explosive runs, by Lamar Jackson galloping through your secondary, right? That's how you get yards per carry. But for me, the ability to get 4 yards when you need to get 4 yards is actually the most important thing. I don't know if we're going to see the Steelers get there this year, but I do think they will be more explosive in the run game, and I do think they will be more efficient. That yards per carry, where last year they were 24th, 25th, somewhere in that range, they can get, I think, in the top half in yards per carry because they will get some more of those explosive plays. You will see Jaylen Warren with his downfield speed break a tackle, get a cutback lane, and then get 20 yards. And I think that's the thing that's been missing from the Steelers offense the last few years, is there just not been that big playability in the running game. They're still probably not the Baltimore Ravens, but I think they can be much more efficient, much more explosive than they have been in the past.
I mean, you look at the top 3 just total rushing yards on the year: Ravens, Eagles, Commanders, and right behind them.
Eagles are another perfect example. Here we come. Stop
this. We're stuck. I mean, the Steelers experienced that at the end of that Eagles game. How was it? An 11-minute drive or something ridiculous like that. The Eagles just held on to the ball and just kept grinding the Steelers down with their run. I think that's eventually what the Steelers want to get to be able to be. Like you said, I don't know if they're that this year. This is, again, a young offensive line. Fautanu making his first real starts in the NFL this year. Mason McCormick, a second-year, 4th-round guy. Zach Frazier, a second-year center. Broderick Jones getting his first real time at left tackle as the bona fide starter. It's going to take time for that group to coalesce and come together. But again, I think if they're able to just be a proficient unit, an above average unit in doing that, that'll be better than what the Steelers have had for a while. Because whereas the Steelers did rank in total rushing yards, they placed 11th last year. Like you said, when it came to yards per attempt, they were in the 20s. And so you want to take that yards per attempt, you want to get that up into the range of, being closer to the top 10 there. And then that shows that, hey, when you're grinding out those yards at the end of the game, when teams are wearing down, that's something. And to be honest, when people talk about playoff droughts, I think that's something that they've really missed in a lot of those games, was the ability to run the football. Because the last time they won a playoff game, they had Le'Veon Bell, and granted they didn't score any touchdowns with it, but having him out there, he had a whole bunch of yards. That was a huge part of what made them dangerous back then.
Yeah, if you look at the top 5 teams in yards per carry last year, not only do they have good running backs, the Baltimore Ravens, Eagles, Arizona Cardinals, and Washington Commanders all have mobile quarterbacks. The Steelers are not going to get that out of Aaron Rodgers. But the 4th team in the last team in the top 5, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, Baker Mayfield can run a little bit, but he's not the rest of those guys, right?
Right.
And I think the Steelers can. If you look at that level of efficiency coming from Tampa Bay, which is primarily a passing offense, whose biggest offensive stars are Godwin and Evans on the outside, and little Bucky Irving can come in and lead a 5.3 yard, like that is the blueprint for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, were the Tampa Bay Buccaneers one of the best absolute rushing offenses in the NFL? No, but they were extremely efficient because they got big plays, they passed to set up the run, and their running back had the explosiveness to turn a 5-yard gain into a 15 or a 20-yard gain if you gave him some room.
The NFL season is almost here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Perhaps you believe the Packers are going to win the Super Bowl. Odds are shorter today than they were yesterday, I'll tell you that. I think I got them at 25-1. Are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet.
Luka Doncic has another great weekend for Slovenia. Will his team advance in Eurobasket?
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast.
Slovenia itself split over the weekend. They lost to France in a very competitive game. France is considered a title favorite in Eurobasket this year.
With a wacky last 5 seconds.
Yeah, it was a lot going on. But, a competitive game for Slovenia against tournament favorite France, which we'll talk about in a second. We'll give you the numbers from all that. And then Slovenia did turn around on Sunday morning, very early on the West Coast. That game, I got up at 7 o'clock on Sunday morning to take my son to a soccer game. His game, that game against Slovenia versus Belgium had been over for like an hour and a half by the time I got up. So it was early. So we'll give you an idea of both how Luka did, Andy, but also too, whether or not Slovenia can advance, because you talked about this last week. There is an understandable impulse, I think, among Lakers fans specifically, not fans of Slovenia, but like if you're just Laker fan, want to see Luka, there's at least an understandable impulse to see them maybe exit the tournament a little earlier. Luka plays well, Slovenia goes out. I know a lot of Lakers fans would be okay with that. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying that is the reality.
If you are a Laker fan who is a Laker fan first, as opposed to a Laker fan that is really a Luka fan first, and you are welcome. The water is great. We Zdravo, all of that. We enjoy everybody that is coming over to become a Laker fan for whatever the impetus is. But if
or
you
even
are,
a Laker fan who's a Luka fan, but not to the, but up to a point where you're not willing to risk certain things about your Laker season, if you will.
I consider those people Laker fans first. I mean, just be honest. There is a certain conflict of interest going on where you want Luka to succeed because you are now a Luka fan, and also the more Luka thrives in these games, the more excited you feel about the upcoming Lakers season with Luka. However, the more that he succeeds, the more he may be playing for these games that, to be totally honest, you don't really care about the final results. So again, it's a delicate dance.
Right, because there have been a couple injury scares, and I forget, was it the game? Was it the second game of the tournament where Luka teammate was trying to take a charge? Yeah. That player fell into Luka's leg. I think that was the second game against France. There was a play where a player on the French team was Elia Kobo, going after the ball and went through Luka's leg sideways. It looked uncomfortable, and it started some pushing and shoving, and that those moments are very, very frightening to people. And so I will I
don't think it really requires much psychological explanation. If you are rooting for the Lakers, you need Luka to be there. Therefore, you are worried about him getting injured this summer. It's not all that.
No, I'm saying, but I make these points because there have been moments. It's easy to say, guys, quit freaking out. Guys aren't getting hurt. There have been moments in this tournament where oh my God, that was scary. That was an awkward play. That could have been a lot worse, whatever it is. So these things have already come up. My understanding from double checking and as much as possible, what is left is that for Slovenia to get out of their group, to advance in this tournament, they need to win their final two games. They're now 1-2 after beating Belgium on Sunday. They need to beat Iceland, which is their next game. That will be a game where Slovenia is favored because Iceland. But the last game that they play in their group against Israel is a game where they will not be favored. The Israelis are a good team. Dani Avia is sort of the headliner there, very good NBA player. And they've got a lot of good players on that team. They actually beat France on over the weekend. And so, the French team, I think, it looked a little bit like they might have been resting some guys because they are already through. But nonetheless, Israel beat them. So it could be a challenge for Slovenia to get through. I think that is what happens. If I am wrong, please leave comments, whether at Cam Brothers on Twitter, on the YouTube page, or whatever it is, and we will then correct ourselves. But I mean, if you want to just focus, Andy, on Luka himself in these two games, the numbers he put up were fantastic against the French. Luka finished with a robust 39 points. He was 8 of 20 from the floor, 4 of 10 from three-point range, 19 of 20 from the free throw line, 8 rebounds, 9 assists. He had 2 steals. To say he did yeoman's work in that game against a team that has a lot of NBA players on it, or guys who have been in the NBA, it would be an understatement. He was not as efficient against Belgium, only 9 of 23 from the floor, but he did have what is rare in Eurobasket play, a triple-double, 26 points, 10 rebounds, 11 assists. So Luka continues to play dominant level basketball in this tournament.
It's just the 4th FIBA Eurobasket triple-double since 1995. Luka also became the youngest player to reach 400 Eurobasket points in total, like in the 19 games that he's played, since Tony Parker did it in 2007 at age 25. Luka's about 100-ish days over 26. Tony Parker was 100-ish days over 25. And from Slovenia, only Goran Dragic and Jaka Lakovic have reached this milestone. Luka also has reached at least 400 points, 100 assists, 100 rebounds over those 19 games. He is the fastest at compiling those numbers in the 21st century. So like we've talked about before, Luka takes his Eurobasket very seriously. He also takes dominating in it very seriously, and he's done it really well. It's a great quote from one of his teammates, Alan Omek. Luka's triple-double is normal. We were just waiting for the moment, and it happened today. Another one of his teammates, Ido Muric, he's breaking records. I've always believed he could do this. This is a normal day at the office. I'm even more glad that today we showed we can play good defense and that we won. So, this is one of those things where with Luka, it's almost just him meeting the insane expectations that he's created for himself, like this just really, really high baseline. And like a lot of great athletes, great Lakers before him, LeBron, Kobe, Magic, Kareem down the line, just keeps topping himself.